Hey, this is Andre Hartunian from Hexen, and you're experiencing Poppitt's Corner.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Poppitt's Corner, and I'm super excited to discuss this specific topic. This gentleman that I've brought on to help me out with this, Mr. Christopher Atomic Thrasher from the mighty Insinnerator. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, man. Well, I brought you on here because me and Shannon originally, and hopefully he'll join us in relatively soon, but we had this kind of discussion of like, you know what? Maybe we should talk about a form that was,
Water bottle.
that was, kind of heavily popular back in, when we were kind of like jumpstarting our career. And I'll go ahead and show the picture up. The Thrash Unlimited Forum, and there's probably the only. Do you remember? I'm sure you remember this photo here.
Yeah, that really takes me back. I don't know how you got a hold of that, but like seeing that is very like, wow. I just got like a warm feeling in my chest.
Right, but it was so. Why don't we kind of educate the masses here and just give a little history lesson on Thrash Unlimited, and I want to know from your perspective on it, because again, I don't know a lot about Thrash Unlimited other than like kind of when I discovered it. And but for you, when did you discover it, and kind of can you educate me on like kind of what the basis of Thrash Unlimited was?
So I remember seeing that image you just showed. So, and if Fuel by Fire put out their record, the re-release of Spread the Fire in 2008, it had to be around 2008. And I know it was around 2008 as well, because Lich King was promoting, and I'll get into this, like they were really writing for their second album, Toxic Zombie Onslaught. So I guess we have to, take that step back into the time machine. This was before, as far as I know, I didn't know of anything like a Reddit, and really before Facebook made us so close to each other. All of the bands had their MySpaces, of course, and we could put our 4 songs on the little music player and such. And that was always a good place to showcase your music. But I felt like there was always something missing for the actual discussion of thrash. Like, we didn't have anywhere to really go to promote it other than putting it just on the page with the player. So Edward Duke, and I only know this other guy's handle on Thrash Unlimited, which was Karoshiga, I think that was his name. They started Thrash Unlimited so that I think especially anyone could discuss the days in the 80s, but that the new bands would have a place to go to discuss their new music and be able to promote their music and like have their own forums to be able to update people on news that may get overlooked if like you just were trying to post a blog on MySpace. It was more of just trying to bring that whole MySpace community together in a singular area to be able to discuss thrash rather than just, being able to post your music.
Now, I just got to ask you this too, because, was it kind of hard for you to kind of get your own page set up on these forums? Because there's obviously you have moderators and whatnot. And I mean, what is the criteria to get your own fucking page on this Thrash Unlimited forum?
That's actually an interesting question. And Insinnerator had ours. And if I had to guess, we were still doing demos. It was 2008. So we had our terrible Possess demo, which was instrumental and just terribly recorded and everything. And for whatever reason, and this is a very interesting thing, Tom Martin of Lich King, the most critical person on earth of not only everything in the world, but of me, to this day, said like you guys had something, even as terrible as it was. You guys had like the energy, or there was like a passion there that could be felt, even though it wasn't recorded and played well. There was this passion that you guys had, and I guess Edward Duke, the admin of Thrash Unlimited, felt the same way, because I feel like I just emailed him. I feel like I emailed him tracks, because Thrash Unlimited also had like an online radio. It wasn't just a forum. There was Thrash Unlimited radio. And I think I sent him those demo tracks and asked him, could we be in rotation for Thrash Unlimited radio? And he got back saying, you know, heck yeah, you guys have energy, you guys have passion. Let me make you guys your own forum too. And there were only a certain select bands that had forums. And I think maybe I just asked at the right time, right place, right time type thing. And I also know that like when, and we can, this is a little further down the line, we can get into this, but Esther, Fuel by Fire's manager, started doing stuff with Thrash Unlimited to promote Thrasher de Mayo. So like any band that was on Thrasher de Mayo would start getting their own forum too. Did you guys get one through the Thrasher de Mayo?
No.
Okay.
Never. So unfortunately, no, but
maybe it was gone at that point. Thrash Unlimited had already been defunct by that time that you guys were on.
Yeah, or just like kind of waning off of it, because the whole craze kind of, I guess it's just Thrash has never died, but that specific community kind of, you know, went on the decline in like 2012, I want to say 2012,
yes.
2013. So, yeah, never got to have our own forum, but at the same time too, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because it's like, it's also kind of cool that we didn't, because we weren't lumped into that genre. You know?
Yeah, you guys have always kind of,
we've always been on the outskirts of that specific genre, but focusing on the Thrash Unlimited and with you guys and whatnot, like, so once you get, I guess, your own page, like, what are the benefits to this, minus being seen to like a whole new audience? I mean, and from my recollection, there were a lot of these bands that had their own forums on this particular website. So I don't know if you guys saw any results of that.
I feel like it was a way. Tom's like my freaking dad. Tom of Lich King always described MySpace as a way to bring in fans, and Thrash Unlimited and Facebook as a way to keep your fans, to really interact with them. So I feel like the benefit of having our forum was, or one benefit was, that's where like people would really come over to interact with us. It felt more, again, this was an odd transitional period between MySpace and Facebook. So having this kind of place where we could be kind of more one-on-one with audience who may have a question, who may want to buy some merch or something, it was a nice place to be able to post a link, thrashunlimited.com/Insinnerator. Boom, there you are. You can post whatever you'd like. Another benefit we had is the business side of the music. I've just recently started getting a little better at. At the time, just funds being tight, being, you know, a teenager when we were doing our first album, I didn't have enough money for like even the lyric pages and the booklet. I just had the bare minimum to make a booklet. So to have that form is where we first posted the lyrics to Stalagmite of Ice. And we could redirect people there. Hey, if there's lyrics you want to know, here they are on our forum. And that luckily got copied to other websites that are probably more appropriate for lyrics. But things like that, I was able to kind of use that for a beneficial thing to help include something that I wasn't able to put on the physical release of Stalagmite of Ice. I know that when... And I brought up, I think I found Thrash Unlimited in 2008 through Lich King. And they were promoting, or I'd say promoting, they were more like writing Toxic Zombie Onslaught. And Tom would post like song by song stuff. I remember Attack of the Wrath of the, you know, whatever that one is. I remember that one. like a demo version of that, and office politics. And I think especially for like Tom, he was able to get direct feedback rather than, I think even before putting it up on MySpace, he would be able to share it with Thrash Unlimited, get feedback, and then I don't, knowing Tom, there may not have been things he had changed, but he would have been able to know what people liked, what people didn't like. So when he was writing new stuff, he would be able to make any adjustments that like really hit well with the audience.
So he had this instant kind of, I don't know, not reaction, but this instant kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Feedback
Yes.
on
Yes.
on his own kind of stuff that he could. And I'm sure it's not just him. I'm sure a lot of people did this too and whatnot. And you know, but going off of this, you know, I mean, what would be some of the negatives to being on a site like Thrash Unlimited? Or, I mean, are there negatives of it?
I think for me, we in 2021, when you say like, oh yeah, that's the internet, and you know that kind of like person that will just kind of relentlessly tear you down and such, that was present on Thrash Unlimited too. If you posted something or you had an opinion that was not of everyone else's, you risked being torn down. And that's just the nature of the internet. But I think for, you know, like 17-year-old me, it was like, oh, you know, this great big awakening that, wow, people are really mean when you're trying to gung-ho, you know, present your art. People can be really mean. And I do just remember a lot of fights, and just a lot of people, as much as they came, and I think as much as Thrash Unlimited was made to help the young generation of bands like us, that the people that still exist in metal today that don't want to let go of 1985, man, they will let you know they do not want to let go of 1985, and they won't tell you why. Like, I'm sorry if this answer is a little wordy. It's just like when we were all starting out, you know, I'll at least admit it. I wasn't trying to like imitate my heroes, but that's who I was learning from. So there may be some similarities in early, you know, compositions to other bands that I was just kind of learning how to riff and such, and like they would tear you down and be like, you know, well that sounds like Slayer, and it's like, well, what do you want it to sound like? Like Slayer, and it's like, well, what the? But you know, they still those kind of metalheads that don't want to move out of 1985 still exist now. But I'm sorry, that was a very wordy way to say that. Yeah, people could be real assholes on there.
Well, but the problem with this whole thing is like they want a certain style, but when you give it to them, they don't want it.
Yeah,
So
like you know, I wish a band sounded like Slayer, and then you come write riffs like Slayer, and then they're like, that sounds like Slayer. It's like, wait, what? Like, I'm stuck in this no man's land. I play something that you really don't want to hear and that I don't feel or whatever, or I play what I like and what you want to hear and what I feel and what I'm passionate about, but you still don't like it. So it's just kind of this middle no man's land of, I don't know which way to go, but I guess I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. Yeah, there's just negative people all around.
of course, we have to focus on the positives and whatnot. And who were some of the bands you discovered from this Thrash Unlimited at first?
I want to say, so I knew a lot of the LA bands when I got into the new wave of thrash, just being younger than like the Merciless Deaths and the Fueled by Fires. Like I found Merciless Death in a Revolve. That's the first new wave of thrash album I ever heard in my life, and still just so good, so passionate. And that one too, yeah. At the same time, I think they had already had, or they were getting ready to do the Metal Blade release. I know Geo was still in Fueled by Fire at least. The Revolver magazine had a little blurb on Merciless Death. I mean, like maybe 2 sentences, but it started with 3 kids possessed with a capital P. And as a big Possessed fan, I was like, oh, got to check these guys out. So I went on MySpace and heard Exhumer was the first song I heard. And it blew me away. And then everyone had their top 8. And so Fueled by Fire and Violator and Hatchet and Warbringer. So it sans Violator in that sentence. I also like Execution and Sacrificer, Tyrant. I was really familiar with the LA stuff. So Thrash Unlimited helped me learn more about the stuff outside of LA. I got really familiar and friendly with Lich King on there. That's where I first heard of Diamond Plate and Vindicator. And there was a band in Florida, Great Awakening, that I hadn't heard until that time. And even like some stuff outside of the US. Pitiful Rain was one, and they're from the UK. I want to say, I can't remember if a band called Temple of Blood is from, I think they're from the US, but they were another non-LA band that I don't think I would have immediately known, because so many of the LA bands top 8 understandably were other LA bands. So Thrash Unlimited kind of opened my eyes to how not only national that the new wave of thrash had become, but how global it was becoming. There were bands in Australia and Asia that I would have had no clue existed if I hadn't been able to find that hub of everyone coming together to be able to promote their music.
Absolutely. And I mean, you wouldn't be able to like discover that, this just goes beyond my little area.
Yes. And like it was interesting to see like people be like different representatives of their area. It's like, okay, if you need to find out more about the Boston area, you reach out to Lich King. And at the time, Diamond Plate was in Chicago, and obviously, well, you have your pick of the LA bands, but San Francisco, you could talk to Hatchet, and they may know other bands like Blessed Curse now and Fog of War.
Yeah, and you had Vector from Arizona.
Right.
You had Meltdown, aka who turned into Mantic Ritual from Pennsylvania,
from Pittsburgh, and even
Pittsburgh,
like Avenger of Blood after they moved to Las Vegas. It was like, okay, if anyone needs anything Las Vegas, Avenger of Blood would be the band to talk to. Because they're originally from San Francisco, right? And then they moved to Las Vegas.
I believe so. I know Shannon is. I know Shannon. Some of his history was in the Bay Area, and then he went to obviously, yeah. But so discover, yeah. I think you make a great point though, and you can, when you're hit the road and whatnot, it was probably easier to make connections that way, where it's like, hey, we're coming to your town, would you mind playing with us, or giving us a good hookup on a promoter and whatnot.
Yes, there was actually a map that I think Tom started of all the thrash bands, and like I think it was a public map. So if you were in a band, you could put a pin on where you are. So when other bands toured the US, you could just go. And I mean, that map was full in like 2011 of other bands that and it actually helped. I know when we went on tour for Slag My Device, we looked at that map and was like, okay, this band's in Tennessee, this band's in West Virginia, this one's in North Carolina. Bands that we may not have known otherwise, or we wouldn't have known who to contact promoter-wise, venue-wise, band-wise. It was an incredible community at that time of everyone having the goal of just wanting to make the best music possible and get it out to the widest audience.
And is that what's kind of missing within our own community, as far as like having that specific kind of close-knit, I guess, community to helping each other out, rather than, because again, I get that you mentioned people get stuck in 1985, and that'll always happen, right? But I mean, it seemed like back during the late 2000s, we had a closer knit community of younger musicians and younger bands just working together.
Yes.
Maybe, I mean, obviously we still do, but it seemed like at that specific moment, it was like us versus the world.
Yes.
Mentality.
That's a perfect way to put it. And I do think, like, obviously we're here together talking about this, and I would do anything for you, to help you in
Ditto.
any way I can. And there are so many other musicians like that. There's a band in Canada named Deatherus that's recently been helping us out with some things and helping us get some opportunities. And but like, I feel like Facebook groups could have been a great evolution of something like Thrash Unlimited, but of all the Facebook groups that I'm in that involve thrash or death metal, what have you, they are stuck in 1985. There is no promotion for new, and if a new band tries to promote, it is just buried by, hey, did you know Kirk Hammett played in Exodus in 1981 for the billionth time? And if you really are a 13-year-old getting into this, I can understand that may blow your mind. But like when you see it's a guy who's 58, and it's like, yeah, man, like, yeah, sure. Can we talk about this new record from Laceration now? But
Yeah, but good. You make a good point here, and I think the benefit to having Thrash Unlimited not on, maybe they were on MySpace back in the day. Let's just say they were. I don't know. I think a benefit to having Thrash Unlimited, their website, because it wasn't MySpace. It wasn't like, and so it's not. There's not like a million fucking forms or whatever. It's like strictly thrashunlimited.com if you want all this kind of news. And on Facebook, it's so cluttered, and you have all these notifications of people, just infiltrating you on 50,000 fucking groups and whatnot. It's like, it's all nonsense. But because we had this hub of like that people would actually kind of seek out to go to, I think that was a huge benefit. And it's severely lacking in music in general, dude. Like having a fucking hub that's not big tech social media bullshit.
yes, and like I said, like I feel like Thrash Unlimited, there was an inherent understanding that, like, yes, we can discuss Exodus demo in 1980 or something, but there was this inherent understanding that the main purpose of this is to discuss new music going forward with the next generation of bands that were still here now that are wanting to take the torch and run forward. I remember Gary Holt came by maybe one time on Thrash Unlimited, and it was fun and it was great. But like, even he was, I think, in his post, like, mad support to the new band. Shout out to Lich King and Fuel by Fire, or whoever he shouted out. Bonded by Blood probably was
Right.
one of them. And even he got in that one post. I'm sure he lurked for a while that this is a place kind of for new bands to promote their music and move forward, because even then, after Exodus had come back and Testament had come back after their long hiatuses, the new bands were all grinding and self-releasing demos and doing splits with each other, just trying to get ahead. And I kind of lost my train of thought, but just like, yeah, everyone understood that a hub like Thrash Unlimited was for bands formed after 2004 to promote their music and move forward.
Absolutely. And what do you think changed though? Like, why don't we have something like that nowadays?
That it's a good question, because you would think that Facebook groups would just be the continuation of that. And the same audience that could have been on Thrash Unlimited could be in a Facebook group. It's open to anyone. If you have a computer, you had access to both. I don't know what happened after like 2013 that we reverted back to like not caring. If this wasn't released in 1992, I don't care. I'm not really sure what happened at some point to kind of change that attitude. I mean, no one can handle when they were born or when they're releasing music, or no one can control that. So I'm kind of at a loss for an answer of why that has changed now. And it's almost like sans a few bands that just get hyped because that other new bands are just held down, and we're just kind of, and I mean no disrespect, because everyone's allowed to make a living wage, and the 80s generation and us should be able to make the same living wage doing the same thing. But here we are getting the same Exodus, Testament, Death Angel tour package, playing the same songs from 1985 and 1987. And, you know, it's crazy that it seems like we've reverted back to that. And
Yeah,
and
it's
I don't
weird.
know if maybe people understand. I'm so sorry, this is a long answer.
No, not at all, man.
I don't understand. Maybe people are realizing, I think by 2030, maybe some bands will really start having to consider hanging it up from the 80s and 90s. And maybe people kind of want to get that one last hurrah in and be excited about it. But you're not. I'm telling you, if you're buying a ticket to see Death Angel in 1987 in 2021, and Death Angel has a lot of energy, you're not seeing Death Angel in 1987.
Well, let's go to a good example of a band that's kind of lost a lot, at least in my opinion. This is just my opinion, so I'm just going to throw it out there. I feel one of the last times I saw Megadeth, it wasn't very good in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
but people will still pay to see that shit. And it blows my mind, just because I've seen them so many goddamn times, where it's like, I've done it. Like, I don't need to fucking do that anymore. And maybe because there are people that they just like the brand, and obviously it's band versus brand kind of thing, which kind of sucks that, like, us bands may never get the opportunity to establish our brand, right? It's going to take us fucking 40 years in order to do that. And most of us won't be here to see that through. So, you know, the 80s bands had outlets like MTV and this, that, and the other. And yeah, we got, you know, YouTube and Facebook, and but so does everybody else. You know, you didn't have a guy like that was like doing quality control, as I call it. So you have an over influx of fucking bands, and you don't even know what's good. Like, people need to be spoon fed on what's good. That's just why people like radio and Sirius and whatnot. And obviously, you know, heavy metal television is kind of, I hope that becomes the new thing, where it's like you're being force fed to watch these killer bands videos that aren't, you know, say all Exodus videos or Testament, or, you know, you're watching, you know, Madrost or Insinnerator or Tormentor or Warbringer, all those kind of bands. You know, that's what I want to see. And even new bands, you know, Power Trip and I guess Onto Others, aka Idle Hands. Like, those are new bands that are like doing something worthwhile.
Yes. Yeah, and like it's such an interesting notion when Megadeth and all those bands were kind of up and coming and on their heyday in 1989. You know, it was kind of a select few bands. Like, you could say, sure, they had to compete with Judas Priest and Iron Maiden, but also Judas Priest was like taking them on tour and all of that. Like, you know, now we're trying to compete, you know, maybe that's not the right word, but
no, it is.
Trying to compete with Megadeth and Judas Priest still to get our stuff noticed, and people are like, well, you guys weren't around in 1982. You don't know what's up. It's like, I can't control. I wasn't born until the 90s. But
and I think let's branch off of this real quick, and we'll get back to Thrash Unlimited. But what, in your opinion, you know, is going to happen? Obviously, metal is still going to be here. It's always going to be underground. It's always going to be here. There's always going to be bands like us that are going to be doing this shit, and the next generation. But, you know, what is going to happen to the state of metal as we know it? Because there's sure as shit ain't going to be, you know, any arena tours with new bands.
Yeah.
That's long gone. People don't value music like they did back then. So, I mean, what is the next thing? Playing clubs?
I think so. I think by 2030, a lot of the bands are going to stop, the 80s bands, and people are going to be like, well, where's the next generation of metal? What happened? Is it dead? Not knowing, you know, that you could have done a Google search and
not even that, but you could have supported bands 10 years ago, right now, to be the next generation of fucking bands. And I think that's really the downfall to music in general. Besides, like, you got, and I'm going to mention this, country and EDM are supported by young people.
Yes.
They are.
Yeah.
They really are.
I've always felt that helps, is that, like, when new musicians come out, and like just kind of your general pop music or trap, you know, or EDM, what have you, like, yeah, that, like, they're not shunned or anything. Like, the people are like, hey, this is good stuff. They're playing what I'm into, and I like it. Hey, I'm gonna go buy a shirt and a record, and I'm gonna go see them and tell them that they're doing a great thing. But with us, it's like, you know, you weren't born in 1982, so I don't like you.
So there's an elitist mentality. Absolutely. I agree with that when it comes to metal in general. There is an elitist, and it sucks. But also I feel like, you know, not having enough kind of all ages venues and whatnot is really a disservice to our community. You know, having no all ages venues for the next generation of people to discover us bands is
Yeah.
really hurting us. You know, you only can go see these fucking huge bands, you know, at all ages places, these arenas, you know,
Yeah.
and that's what we need to start having more, are these all ages venues, and people not, you know, being subjugated to these fucking politics that prevent them from doing it. Because
Yeah.
when there's so much liability now with, you know, having all ages venues serving alcohol and whatnot.
I thought people just put an X on your hand, and it was like, hey,
Well,
you don't get them.
that's when it was sensible. That's when the world was sane. So, like, it's not like that anymore. But it should be, right?
Yeah. I thought seriously, it was as simple as a wristband or an X on your hand, and people are like, hey, okay, you can come see the band, but you just can't have a beer. Like, what's simple enough?
And it just, maybe I just don't get it because I'm not a fucking venue owner and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it just seems like that is one area where we could do better in, and it'd be easy, somewhat, if we had more people taking chances. And that's maybe that's what we're kind of doing here right now, right? Is like, we're taking chances on new bands, and Thrash Unlimited, going back to Thrash Unlimited, they took chances on new bands.
Yes.
That's why, you know, but that, it seems like that doesn't exist as much. And I guess, how can we, in your opinion, give me one thing that where you think we can kind of do better at this, and encourage and shine the spotlight on new bands?
That's a good question, because something like Thrash Unlimited was so positive for that, and like I said, our demos for Insinnerator were so beyond bad that no one had any business trying to promote us like that. Like, if I had heard my demos now, I would have been like, there's no way these people are serious, passionate or not. There's no way. It's terrible. But yeah, I'm not sure where a good avenue would be to share that in a positive way. And I'm not trying to be like, oh, you know, let's all hold hands and sing Kumbaya, but, you know, don't just. I wish there was a place for new bands to share their music, promote their art, and not have people just be like, oh, this is the worst thing I've ever heard, you guys should kill yourselves. It's like, okay, it's a little extreme.
Well, you could have a Thrash Unlimited nowadays. You could have one. I mean, the guy that did it before, he could do it again, and
Yes.
moderate and make sure that, you know, he's doing quality control on the right bands.
And I just like, I think the only issue that I see with that is just like, and maybe it's just my internet usage of how I'm more on just kind of your normal social medias like Facebook and Instagram and such, are like, it seems like forums as a whole have just kind of died. There's subreddits and things like that for every interest out there, but the like general forum and the centralized forum for a single topic, it just doesn't seem like there's much interest maybe for people to have to join forums, which, I mean, you know, it doesn't take any effort. It's putting in an email, but I don't know. I guess just like Reddit kind of took the place of that. But when I think Reddit, I never think metal or thrash or death metal. I don't know why. Maybe I should think more like that.
Absolutely, and it seems, but and with ours, kind of, I think it would just benefit us as a community in general. Maybe not to have a form. Maybe that's the wrong kind of lingo that I'm kind of suggesting, but something like that would be like
Yes.
something new. Maybe heavy metal television is the new thing, where it's like something different that's gonna, hopefully take hold of stuff, like, and I'm gonna do some cross promotion here, like even, I don't know, Banger TV, as much as stuff
Yeah.
is like, you know, yeah, they do an okay job. There's some stuff I wish they promoted more stuff from, but also too, they kind of handle more of like the big underground bands,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
big label fucking bands, as I call it.
And
Not
I
that to
often
say
wonder.
that like, and not to say that this wasn't on a big label, but it's like, the bands that have already kind of established themselves in black metal and death metal, like that's what they pertain to.
Yeah. And I understand sometimes like that, like, you need, if for a Banger TV, you need the views or your ratings.
Sure.
And maybe there's some money involved. Hey, let's slip you this. Can you promote this? Or you know what? There's always things
Favors
like
and what? Yeah, sure.
Sure.
Politics.
But yeah, like that's just, the music business. But I do understand. I do, even just a block of something, a specific YouTube channel, just, like Trevor of the Black Dahlia Murder does a fantastic job when he reviews his albums. I'm not sure if it's for Decibel or Revolver, but he'll go maybe monthly and pick out some stuff like that I have never seen promoted from labels that are much more independent or bands that are much more independent. And Trevor, he gives them this fantastic spotlight with his audience, which I think is just an amazing thing to do, and just another way just to keep it going and keep it positively growing. And maybe I'd love to see like a Banger TV with such a big audience do something similar.
Absolutely. That, it could easily be done. It's just one more video you'd have to make.
Right. Yeah.
But that's so, like, lastly, going off of the Thrash Unlimited, like, let's kind of talk about, the whole ending to it and what you kind of remember. And obviously we discovered, bands. I remember discovering like Sacrificer and Execution, and like Dismantle the Cross or whatever, that fucking demo rules. Remember that fucking, I loved the hell out of that fucking demo.
That demo is one of my favorites.
Rules, dude. But I discovered those kind of bands and Fueled by Fire through like Sirius satellite radio, and then on Thrash Unlimited and MySpace and whatnot. So it just, from, I guess what I'm kind of saying is that was one benefit to having a forum such as this, because we got to discover our generation of bands, man.
Yes.
And for you, when did you start to notice the slow decline of the Thrash Unlimited, and what kind of transpired?
I think it was probably around 2013 that I kind of noticed it was cooling off. I think at that time, Facebook had really become this, the solid social media. And people who were friends on the forum that maybe would have used like the DM feature before, well, they just became friends on Facebook and would just talk through there. I think also it got really, there's also like two other things that I remember. One was, it's almost like those things where people are talking about, did you know Kirk Hammett played in Exodus before Metallica? Topics like that. It's like, it almost feels like people ran out of things to say. How many times can you talk about that in one post one topic, when you could just hit page 2 and see that on the next page and page 3. It just, I feel like people were kind of running out of things to say in terms of the general discussion of thrash and death metal and such. And with that, man, it got nasty there for a while. There were quite a few individuals who were just like kind of ruining the place, being just kind of unpleasant online bullies, you know, as we probably all have been in our lives. But these are guys, you know, in like their 40s and 50s that were just like, you know, picking on teenagers. And it's like, dude, why do you have beef with me? But but yeah, like I remember it got really kind of like, and again, I'm not a whole like positivity all the time, but it got really like negative and uncomfortable there. It really felt like you couldn't post something without someone flaming you, to use that term for forums. And I think honestly that kind of just drove people away just to maybe stay on Facebook where their audience came with them as well, and they were kind of able to have the same features. Yeah, as I think a lot of bands, as their likes grew on Facebook, it was like, well, I have, you know, 5,000 fans here on Facebook. I don't need to. I'm sure everyone that's on the forum is on the Facebook. So and then some. So I'll just post on the Facebook. So bands stopped using their own personal forums less, probably around 2013. And I think after that, Edward Duke, and he was public about this, so I'm sure he won't mind me saying, and I won't disclose what kind, but he became ill and had to step away. And I think over time, him and Carol Shigo was just like, not enough people are using this. I don't think we need to fund this anymore. And I feel like one day I just went to go check it out and it wasn't there anymore.
And I know a couple of them still do like reviews and interviews and whatnot. And one of them is Skull Fracturing Metal or whatever.
Yes. That was a guy named Emmett who started that, and he's passed it off to someone. I think they paired up for a time, Scott and Emmett. Emmett started it, Scott came along, and I think Emmett just kind of passed to Scott. And
they do a great job, man. I'm a fan of what they do.
He is an incredible reviewer. He is thorough. He is very insightful with what he likes and what clicks with him. And I personally read every review he posts, even if it's like something that I'm not very familiar with, or it might not be my cup of tea, but I enjoy seeing what he has to say about it, because maybe he could change my mind if it clicks with him. It's like, well, if it clicked with him, maybe I should check this out. And
absolutely.
See if I like it.
And I think it's a super beneficial to having those websites still, and Banger TV and Heavy Metal Television and all these things that just will kind of cater to the next generation and you know, keep it going, because without it, it's gonna, you know, it won't be here anymore.
Right.
So it's just, you know, and in saying that, I want to thank you, Chris, again for coming on and hanging with me. Let's do this again. We'll pick another topic and bring you back on, and obviously, you know, talk our ears off and whatnot. Hopefully Shannon will, you know, come on here and we can fucking have a, you know, a 3-peat of just, I don't know, topics and disclose some stuff. So, but before I let you go, what is going on with Insinnerator right now?
Oh, well, we just celebrated 10 years of our debut album, Stalagmite of Ice, which is wild. That was a very fast 10 years. We have commemorative anniversary type merchandise at our Bandcamp, insinnerator.bandcamp.com. We have cassettes and t-shirts and long sleeves. We have some news coming out soon about another one of our previous albums. I'll wait until that has officially been announced, maybe before I can say some more. But we are grinding on this new album. I think last time we talked, I said the same thing. But we are grinding on it. I think we have about a song and a half left to finish. And then that will finally be done. We will get in the studio, we will record it, and we will be out there touring wherever we can. We have shows booked in Chicago right now. We have stuff booked in Japan. And I think we are in talks to do some runs with a with another band from the East Coast next year. So things are happening. They happen slowly because, like I said, I'm in 10 years in, I'm still learning how to do all this. But things are going well. I think things are about to get pretty extreme and get pretty cold. So
Absolutely, man. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I want to thank you again, seriously, for coming on the show, man. It means so much, and let's do it again sometime, dude.
absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I genuinely appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. This was fun. So we'll do it all again relatively soon. But another episode of Poppitt's Corner, guys. I'm out. Cheers.